Ravens Wrap is sponsored by Bud Light, jctickets.net, Geico Insurance, Donaway Furniture, Ocean City Golf Club, RussellStreetReport.com, Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Holiday Inn Express, the original Green Turtle, hosted by the Blue Ox Bar and Grill.
It is the original Green Turtles Ravens Wrap Show right here on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio 93.5 The Beach, broadcasting from the Ravens Room on the plush set from our friends at Donaway Furniture here at the Blue Ox 127th Street Coastal Highway in Ocean City. Want to thank our sponsors, of course, the Green Turtle, Blue Ox, our friends at Bud Light. Boy, we've got a lot of giveaways this year, so you're really going to love that. Our friends at Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Geico, the Ocean City Golf Club, jctickets.net, RussellStreetReport.com, and again, Donaway Furniture providing us this great set. Mike Bradley, Tony Lombardi, Bobby Vermillion, and Bruce Laird all in the set here. And what we're going to do at the beginning of this segment is take some questions from the audience that they prepare before the programs, and I'll try to distribute these as best as possible. First question up, what about a backup quarterback to Joe Flacco? And certainly in a league of which it's all about the quarterbacks, if you have a quarterback, you're in trouble. What of Tyrod Taylor? We'll go through down the panel here.
Well, I think in the past, and we talked about it earlier in the program, that Cam Cameron used to take Tyrod Taylor and ask him to do the same things that Joe Flacco did. That's not the case under Jim Caldwell. You'll notice that they're running a lot of that option offense with Tyrod Taylor in preseason, and I think that's a perfect example of Jim Caldwell understanding the strengths and weaknesses of his players and putting them to use in the best way that can be productive for the team. So I think the way it is right now, if Tyrod Taylor comes into a game, God forbid if Joe Flacco gets hurt, that he is a disruptive force because he's so much different than Joe, and the offense seems to be able to work with him. So I think Tyrod's a good guy to go with. This time last year, I would have said something different, but this year I like him.
I agree. I think Tony makes some great points. I think Tyrod's grown. I think if the Ravens were comfortable last year with two quarterbacks, I think they're going to be even more comfortable this year with Tyrod Taylor. The only fear I have if he does come in the game, if he gets hurt, because the way he plays the game, as we saw in the preseason game, he got knocked out with a concussion. That could be an issue because he does put himself in harm's way. But I think he's definitely on the rise as far as the quarterback position.
I totally affirm what you guys are talking about. I think it's going to be a two-quarterback team for this team, and I think, as Tony just mentioned, that's what they're going to do. They're going to play to his strengths, so they'll let him get out of the pocket. I remember when I first saw Steve Young in the league, and we used to sit there, and I used to tell my defensive linemen, fellas, I don't care. You're not gonna catch the son of a gun, so you got to bracket him. Don't let him get outside the tackles. And sure enough, the ends would go upfield, and sure enough, you give him the dip, and they go outside. I mean, he could be back there for 9 minutes. We saw some of that. He's so elusive, and there's nothing worse as a secondary guy sitting there going, 1,010, and you're still, where's the guy? And he hadn't thrown the ball yet. So that's going to offer them some other options.
Well, and I don't think with the contract that they gave Joe Flacco that we're going to see Tyrod Taylor in a lot of packages. But, Bruce, as you well know, it still gives the other teams that we're playing against this year something that they have to prepare for because we could break it out at least sporadically here and there, and you never know. So that's time that the defense has to take to work on the zone read option.
You know what? I would absolutely, this year, especially this year, I would absolutely love if we had Tyrod Taylor in there for a couple mop-ups. You know what I mean? And get him in there. But no, he will not play. If the game goes on through, he won't be on the football field. I mean, you see it all the time. You didn't take John Elway out. You didn't take Dan Marino
Bruce,
out.
there's 120 million reasons for that, too.
You got that right. And the guy's going to be playing. I hope we do see him a little bit. But he's not the answer to how this football team is going to repeat to the dances we talked about. Remember, there's 12 playoff spots. Each and every year, 40 to 45% of that 12 don't show up again. Amazing thing, isn't it? I love the NFL. Sell hope. All you people in Arizona, you have a shot.
That's right.
So did Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber.
I know, you got a shot.
You're telling me there's a chance. That's right. And next question, Tony, we'll throw this to you on this one because we've talked about it a lot on our on the radio show up in Baltimore. Who will be the team's next big motivator this year? Of course, Ray Lewis has been the leader for the 17 years of the franchise, but now we're into a new season. Ray's retired. Ed Reed's now with the Houston Texans. We've talked about this. I think a number 55 is going to step to the forefront. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he is too, and I think when you look back to 2012 and you think about the things we heard Suggs talking about with Skip Bayless and whatnot, and he was always talking about Ray Lewis as being the general. He was like a lieutenant. And I think it's time that the lieutenant graduated to become a general. So I do think that Terrell Suggs will do a few things that the leaders should do. But, you know, when you talk to some of the players and you ask them about Ray Lewis didn't always do that all the time, because we saw that on the camera. You know, Ray played to the cameras a lot, and for good reason. But at the same time, it was one of those things where he picked his spots, and that's another thing that a good leader does. You know, I talked to Justin Tucker about this. He said Ray was one of the quietest guys on the team, studying film, but he picked his spots, and that's what good leaders do. So I think Suggs is going to be that kind of guy, if they even need that inspirational leader. But on the field, I think the guy that's going to take Ray Lewis's place is Darryl Smith, who I think has shown very well so far this preseason.
No, agree with that. Next question up, and we'll throw this one for Bruce in terms of the defense. The young linebackers, how are the young linebackers looking? You just mentioned Darryl Smith we picked up from Jacksonville. We drafted Arthur Brown out of Kansas State, but also young Josh Bynes, who got some play last year. He's actually beaten Arthur Brown for that inside linebacker spot opposite of Darryl Smith.
I think Darryl Smith is the key to that linebacking core right now. He's a veteran. He's going to get it. I think Dean Pease finally has, for the first time in his small tenure here, he has his defense back. There's nothing worse, and I don't ever want to say anything bad about an Ed Reed, because if I had all of his fingers, I would be in the Hall of Fame. But anyway, there was a guy that just did what he wanted to do at times, and there was no kind of control over Ed. And that's very difficult to have happen in your locker room, because the young players start thinking they can do it. And that whole attitude gets up. So I think Dean Pease has got a group of athletes and a front seven, not a front four, a front seven that everybody's being pushed. By that, Terrence Cody. If Terrence Cody came to camp and thought he was having a job this year, then he's got mental problems, because he's the kind of guy that would be on the bubble. And if he didn't get that, I think the competition on that field during training camp would relate to that. And I think Dean is going to use that. He's a Lou Saban guy. He's a Bill Belichick guy. And he's got that Parcells in him. It's not a yelling, screaming guy. It's a tweaker. What's your button?
And to dovetail on what Bruce is saying, too, about Ed Reed, and you look at Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis would never come off the field in passing situations and probably shouldn't have been on there. So Dean Pease has a little bit more freedom now that Ray Lewis isn't there.
Absolutely. And quite frankly, if you'd ever get an official of the Ravens to say it, they would tell you that right up front, quietly. Ray shouldn't have been playing the last 3 or 4 years in nickel. He's not there yet. You just lose that. You can't do that. But because of the situation, that it is what you get. You get the icon, but you also get some of the problems that go along with it. And those corners now are going to be playing what they're going to believe in. I got deep help. He's going to be there for me.
You know, Mike, it is kind of amazing. You sit here and talk about the defense. Who would think, as a Ravens fan, after Ed Reed leaves and goes to Houston and Ray Lewis retires, you talk to most Ravens fans right now, and we're really excited about the defense. We think the defense can be better than it was last year.
Great
you know,
point.
not a whole lot of talk about the offense right now, but you know, Baltimore has always been known for its defense, and I think that the tradition is going to continue with Dumerville and Suggs, and then, as you mentioned, Darryl Smith and the guys that we added to this roster.
I mean, that's the key. You can have all the talent in the world, ladies and gentlemen, but if you can't get to the passer and you can't force from inside and outside, so you got two great outside rushers, and Elvis and now Suggsy. Now you got some pressure up the middle. Now you can take a player that may not have all these physical attributes, but he plays the coverage called. He knows where things are. As that grows, that young player becomes so much more confident. On 3rd and 12, he's not going to be freaking out. Don't throw it to me. Oh, God, I hope they don't throw it to me. You know, then you're going to want him, throw it to me, man. I want to make a play. And believe me, that's the maceration process that pros have to have. You got to start getting in there and going, I'm the man. I want to make the play. Not outside the system. There's the difference. It's within the system, and that's why a Bill Belichick mentality, and you've seen it all his career, wherever he was, he never would say, great talent, can't play for me. Talent, doesn't matter, can't play for me. You play within my system. And I think we'll see a lot of growth out of the defense, and we're going to need it.
Right. As we know, the better the pass rush, the less the corners, the safeties, the backers have to cover. That can cover up some things as well. So that's an excellent question as well. But as it's constituted, Upshaw and Doomerville will split time. Upshaw mostly running downs. And then, of course, Doomerville and passing down. Suggs or three-down guy. And you got Josh Bynes and Darryl Smith on the inside. Very solid there. Next question up, Tony, we'll throw this your way because you're at training camp a lot this past summer. How many receivers and running backs will we carry, and who will they be? That's a great question. The $64 million question, especially with receiver.
Yeah, I think that the depth chart in both those positions will be predicated upon who of those guys can contribute on special teams. The 6 wide receivers, you know, I've heard people say sometimes 7 and 8, but that's not going to happen. No. 6 wide receivers. The guys that I think that are at the bottom of that pecking order will be like Laquan Williams. It would be Aaron Millette and the newcomer, the undrafted free agent out of Georgia, Marlon Brown. I think the locks are going to be Jacoby,
Torrey Smith,
Torrey, and Brandon Stokely.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to keep 6. With the running back situation, it's really, really interesting because if they have to rely on special teams only, I think Anthony Allen has the edge there because he's been described as a defender in a running back's body, and that's important on special teams. However, if there's somebody else, whether it be a wide receiver, a linebacker, a tight end, that can really contribute on special teams and do the things that Anthony Allen does on special teams, I think that job goes to Bobby Rainey.
60 seconds, Bobby. We'll have you weigh in on receivers and running backs.
Well, I think it's a good point to expand in the roster, Bruce. I mean, I think 53 is a tough number, and there's, the Ravens are going to cut, a lot of good players, and I'm sure teams around the league are going to take notice. So I think it's been a good point, and even Steve Bisciotti had mentioned this too. It's a difficult job, and you can only you don't even have 53 active game day. So I'm not sure why they haven't done that yet, but I think it's a good time to maybe consider doing that.
And just think about this. I don't know how many coaches they have in the Ravens. I'll do this quickly. I know we may be coming up in a break, but there's going to be 15 guys in that room, and this is what they do. They all sit there and they go to Mike. You say, Mike, explain to me why you want your guy on the field. You're the defensive back coach, tight end coach, and you get that opportunity and you have that discussion, and it's not always pleasant. It's very heated. It gets right into some personal stuff because everybody wants to be able to do that. And John and Ozzie and Dick, at the end of the day, look at that whole program and say, that's who's best for this football team. And we'll never know how that goes down.
All right, more of the Ravens Wrap Show coming your way next. Comcast Beach TV and 93.5 The Beach. Keep it over.
In April 1959, Art Wall won the Masters, edging out Carey Middlecoff and Arnold Palmer by finishing birdie, 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 par birdie. 1 month later, Ocean City Golf Club celebrated the opening of their first 18 holes. That course has been transformed now into one of the most scenic golf layouts on the East Coast. Come experience 36 of the most beautiful and challenging holes you'll find anywhere. Ocean City Golf Club in Ocean City, Maryland.